package was unremarkable. A small cardboard box, approximately 12 inches square, shipped through a standard commercial carrier from a supplier in Southeast Asia. The customs declaration listed the contents as industrial printer components, replacement parts for commercial printing equipment. Value declared at $47. But the Homeland Security Investigations agent who pulled that package for secondary inspection would later describe it as the most dangerous object he had encountered in 18 years of federal law enforcement. Inside, hidden within hollowed-out plastic cartridges designed to look like toner components, was enough fentanyl to kill 50,000 people. This single interception would launch a 14-month investigation that would ultimately expose a synthetic drug trafficking network operating across 3 continents. A network that had already flooded American communities with enough fentanyl to claim thousands of lives. A network that was preparing to dramatically escalate its operations with a shipment that would have represented the single largest synthetic opioid distribution event in American history. This is the story ATF Trigger has been documenting. An operation that was 5 days away from distributing 38 kilograms of pure fentanyl to distribution networks across 19 American cities. An operation that would have supplied enough lethal doses to kill 19 million people. An operation that federal agents stopped before a single additional gram reached American streets. The investigation began with that intercepted package at a major international shipping hub. The fentanyl discovered inside, approximately 200 grams, was immediately recognized as representing a significant threat. But experienced investigators understood that 200 grams doesn't represent a trafficking network. It represents a sample, a test shipment, a proof of concept. The question that would drive the next 14 months of relentless investigation was terrifying in its implications. If this was just a test, what was the full operation going to look like? DEA chemists analyzed the seized fentanyl immediately. The results confirmed investigators' worst fears. The substance was pharmaceutical-grade, with a purity level exceeding 96%. This wasn't street-level production. This was industrial-scale manufacturing from a sophisticated laboratory operation. The chemical signature indicated origin in a specific region of Southeast Asia, known for clandestine synthetic drug production. But what made this seizure truly alarming was what the analysis revealed about cutting agents and additives. The chemical profile matched fentanyl recovered from overdose deaths across the United States over the previous 18 months. Over 700 fatal overdoses across 31 states showed the identical chemical signature. 700 deaths. And investigators had just intercepted what appeared to be a sample shipment from the source. The investigation expanded immediately. Homeland Security Investigations coordinated with DEA, the FBI, and Customs and Border Protection to trace the package's journey. The shipping trail led through a labyrinth of forwarding addresses, reshipping services, and commercial logistics companies designed specifically to obscure the package's true origin. But investigators found the weak point in the network's security: digital payments. The sophisticated criminals behind this operation had created an elaborate physical logistics network. But their financial infrastructure was more vulnerable than they realized. Cryptocurrency transactions, while designed to be anonymous, traces. Those traces, combined with traditional financial investigation methods, allowed investigators to map the network's structure over months of painstaking analysis. What emerged was a trafficking operation of staggering scope and sophistication. The network operated on 3 levels. At the top, manufacturing operations in Southeast Asia produced pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl at industrial scale. These laboratories, hidden in rural compounds, employed trained chemists and operated with military-grade security. Production capacity was estimated at over 100 kilograms per month. The middle level consisted of logistics coordinators who managed the international shipping operation. These individuals, operating from multiple countries, coordinated the packaging, shipping, and delivery of fentanyl to recipients worldwide. They had developed sophisticated concealment techniques, hiding drugs in everything from commercial products to personal goods to industrial equipment. The street level consisted of distribution networks in the United States who received the fentanyl, processed it for retail sale, and distributed it through networks of dealers across multiple cities. These networks had connections to street gangs, independent dealer operations, and in some cases, corrupt pharmaceutical distributors. The scale of the operation was almost incomprehensible. Intelligence gathered over the following months indicated that this network had successfully shipped over 400 kilograms of fentanyl into the United States over the previous 3 years. 400 kilograms. At 2 milligrams per lethal dose, that represented enough fentanyl to kill 200 million people. Obviously, not all of that fentanyl resulted in deaths. The substance was cut with other materials before street sale, reducing its lethality while maximizing profit. But the 700 confirmed deaths linked to this network's product represented only a fraction of the true death toll. Investigators estimated that the actual number of fatalities connected to this operation likely exceeded 3,000. 3,000 Americans dead, families destroyed, communities devastated, and the operation was still active. ATF Trigger can confirm that undercover agents successfully infiltrated the network's American distribution operation. After 6 months of careful cultivation, the intelligence they gathered revealed an operation on the verge of unprecedented expansion. The network's leadership had been planning what they called the consolidation phase. Rather than shipping fentanyl in small packages to numerous recipients, they planned to execute a single massive shipment that would supply their entire American distribution network for months. The logistics were already arranged. The payments had been made. The distribution infrastructure was ready. 38 kilograms of pure fentanyl, staged at a facility in Southeast Asia, scheduled for shipment in 5 days. The intelligence recovered by undercover operatives painted a disturbing picture of how this shipment would be distributed once it arrived in America. 19 distribution hubs had been established across the country: Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Miami, Philadelphia, Phoenix, San Diego, Dallas, San Francisco, Denver, Atlanta, Boston, Detroit, Seattle, Minneapolis, Baltimore, Portland, Las Vegas, Charlotte. Each hub was operated by a local distribution network that had already been supplied with smaller shipments and had demonstrated their ability to move product efficiently. The 38-kilogram shipment would be divided among these 19 hubs based on their proven distribution capacity. The largest allocation, approximately 4 kilograms, was destined for the Los Angeles network. The smallest, approximately 1 kilogram, for the Charlotte operation. Each hub was expected to process their allocation within 60 to 90 days. The street value of this single shipment exceeded $200 million. The profit margin for the trafficking network was estimated at over $150 million. The death toll, if the shipment had been successfully distributed and sold, was projected to exceed 2,000 additional fatalities over the following year. 2,000 more families destroyed, 2,000 more communities mourning preventable deaths, 2,000 more victims of a trafficking network that operated with industrial efficiency. But the investigation had also revealed the network's vulnerabilities. The logistics coordinator responsible for American operations had been identified through months of surveillance and digital investigation. This individual, operating from a residence in the American Southwest, managed the entire domestic distribution infrastructure. He coordinated communications between the overseas suppliers and the 19 distribution hubs. He managed financial flows. He resolved disputes. He was the single point of failure in the American operation. Federal agents had been monitoring his communications for 4 months. They had mapped his network. They had identified his 19 hub operators. They had documented his methods. And they knew exactly when the massive shipment was scheduled to arrive. The takedown was planned for 3 days before the scheduled shipment departure. simultaneous operations across 23 locations in the United States, coordinated notifications to law enforcement partners in 7 foreign countries, the largest synthetic opioid trafficking operation ever attempted by American law enforcement. At 4:30 in the morning Pacific time, teams moved simultaneously across the country. The logistics coordinator was arrested at his residence without incident. Agents recovered 12 cell phones, 4 laptops, and financial records documenting 3 years of trafficking operations. The evidence would prove invaluable in prosecuting the broader network. The 19 hub operators were arrested in coordinated raids across their respective cities. 17 were taken into custody without incident. 2 attempted to flee but were apprehended within hours. At each location, agents recovered fentanyl stockpiles, distribution equipment, financial records, and customer lists. The total domestic seizure was staggering. 14.6 kilograms of fentanyl recovered from American locations, nearly $3 million in cash. Weapons including 47 firearms, many illegally possessed. Distribution equipment including scales, packaging materials, and cutting agents. And perhaps most valuable, complete records of the network's customer base and distribution methods. But the operation extended far beyond American borders. Coordinated law enforcement actions in Southeast Asia, executed simultaneously with the American raids, targeted the manufacturing operation. While DEA cannot directly operate in foreign countries, years of relationship building with foreign law enforcement partners paid dividends. Local authorities, acting on intelligence shared through official channels, raided 4 suspected manufacturing facilities. The results exceeded expectations. One facility was confirmed as a major fentanyl production laboratory, with equipment capable of producing over 50 kilograms per month. Approximately 8 kilograms of fentanyl was recovered from the facility, along with precursor chemicals sufficient for several more months of production. 6 individuals were arrested at the scene. Most importantly, the staged shipment was recovered before it could enter the international logistics chain. 38 kilograms of pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl, packaged and ready for concealment in commercial cargo, was seized by foreign authorities acting on American intelligence. 38 kilograms, 19 million lethal doses, 5 days from shipment. All of it stopped. ATF Trigger has confirmed the human toll this operation would have inflicted had it succeeded. The network's records, recovered during the raids, documented their sales history and customer base with disturbing precision. The network tracked everything: sales volumes by city, customer complaints, product quality feedback, death reports. Yes, death reports. The traffickers monitored overdose deaths as a quality control measure. Too many deaths in a particular market indicated their product was too pure and needed additional cutting. Not enough deaths suggested their competition was offering a more potent product. These people treated human lives as data points in a business optimization exercise. The records showed that over the previous 18 months, the network had supplied fentanyl that resulted in documented sales to over 40,000 individual customers across the United States. 40,000 people purchasing poison from a network that calculated acceptable death rates as a cost of doing business. The disruption of this network didn't just seize drugs and arrest traffickers. It fundamentally disrupted the supply chain that had been feeding addiction and death across America. The 19 distribution hubs that were dismantled represented the primary wholesale suppliers for hundreds of street-level dealers. With their supply chain destroyed, those dealers would be forced to find new sources or exit the market entirely. DEA analysts estimated that the network's destruction would reduce fentanyl availability in affected markets by approximately 40% over the following 6 months. 40% less poison on American streets. 40% fewer opportunities for fatal overdoses. 40% reduction in the fuel feeding the addiction crisis. But the investigation also revealed the scale of what had already occurred before the network was stopped. The 400 kilograms of fentanyl successfully distributed over the previous 3 years represented a death toll that investigators are still working to fully document. The 700 confirmed deaths linked to the network's chemical signature almost certainly represent a fraction of the true total. Many overdose deaths are never tested for specific chemical signatures. Many are misclassified. Many occur in circumstances where the source of the drugs is never investigated. Conservative estimates suggest that this single network was responsible for between 3,000 and 5,000 American deaths over its 3 years of operation. 3,000 to 5,000 families destroyed by a trafficking operation that viewed their loved ones as acceptable losses in a business calculation. This is why operations like this matter. Every kilogram of fentanyl seized is thousands of potential deaths prevented. Every trafficking network dismantled is a supply chain that can no longer feed addiction and death. Every distributor arrested is one fewer link in the chain connecting manufacturers to victims. The defendants in this case face charges including conspiracy to distribute controlled substances resulting in death, money laundering, and international drug trafficking. Under federal sentencing guidelines, the primary organizers face mandatory minimum sentences of life imprisonment. Several defendants are also facing prosecution in foreign jurisdictions for manufacturing and export violations. The investigation continues. Intelligence recovered during the raids has led to the identification of additional trafficking networks operating similar business models. 3 additional investigations are currently underway targeting networks that may have connections to the same manufacturing sources in Southeast Asia. ATF Trigger will continue to follow this story as prosecutions proceed, and the full scope of the network's operations becomes clear through court proceedings. The coordinated operation that dismantled this network represented the largest synthetic opioid trafficking takedown in American history. It involved law enforcement agencies from 7 countries. It resulted in arrests of over 60 individuals across 3 continents. It seized drugs, cash, and assets valued at over $230 million. But the most important number is the one that represents what didn't happen. 38 kilograms, 19 million lethal doses, 19 American cities, 5 days from shipment. All of it stopped before a single gram could reach American streets. The communities that would have suffered the consequences of that shipment will never know how close they came. The addicts who would have purchased that poison will never know they were targeted. The families who would have buried loved ones will never experience that grief. That's the measure of success in narcotics interdiction. Not just the drugs seized, though over 50 kilograms recovered represents a massive achievement. Not just the traffickers arrested, though 60 arrests across 3 continents is significant. Not just the assets seized, though $230 million disrupts criminal financing substantially. The real measure is the deaths that never occurred, the families that remained intact, the communities that didn't have to bury their children. 38 kilograms, 5 days, 19 cities, all of it stopped. ATF Trigger continues to track federal law enforcement operations that protect American communities from drug trafficking, synthetic opioid distribution, and the criminal networks that profit from addiction and death. This story represents one operation among thousands conducted every year by dedicated federal agents working to stem the flow of deadly drugs into American communities. The investigation that began with a single intercepted package ultimately exposed a trafficking network that had claimed thousands of American lives over 3 years of operation. It resulted in arrests across 3 continents and the largest synthetic opioid seizure in American history. But the most important outcome was the shipment that never arrived. The 38 kilograms that never reached distribution. The 19 million lethal doses that never reached American streets. 5 days. That was the margin between success and catastrophe. 5 days between coordinated law enforcement action and a shipment that would have fueled addiction and death across 19 American cities. This is what ATF Trigger documents: the operations that prevent catastrophe, the investigations that stop death before it occurs, the agents who work tirelessly to protect communities that will never know they were in danger. 38 kilograms, 5 days, 19 cities, 19 million lethal doses. All of it stopped before it could begin. This story is a fictional dramatization inspired by federal law enforcement concepts. It does not depict real cases, individuals, or specific operations. All scenarios, agencies, activities, and outcomes are entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes.